Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
Good evening and welcome to the Bellows Village Trustees regular meeting. It's Tuesday, February 8th, 2022, and it's 6:05. We're down here in the Town Hall Lower Theater, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. Let me see, did you bring copies of the minutes, Todd, or did you not?
I do, I have an extra if anybody needs them.
Yeah, I don't think any of us got them because Kathleen, except for, she finished them up, so.
I know she sent a electronic copy.
She did. I just want to make sure that everybody,
Yeah.
did you, no,
She sent the
do you have a copy? Do you need a copy?
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently we need 2 more copies.
She sent,
I'm good, I read them, so,
Okay.
because I reviewed them.
yeah.
Then she sent it, did you, so get from Scott, you don't give me 1 copy. It was 3 pages.
But she only sent it to you, right?
She had me look at it, yeah, just
Yeah,
to make
okay.
sure that we were good.
Yeah, that's fine.
The revised copy that she sent out though, was
Yeah.
the only correction was that one.
Right.
paragraph, Correct?
Yeah,
You wanna take a look at this?
so did you get a copy?
No, she told me what the correction was.
That's all right.
Okay. Oh, well, a little bit of confusion here over the minutes, since we didn't have printed copies in front of us. We did receive digital copies.
I guys,
Yeah, you got a digital copy, okay. All right, so I'd like to approve the minutes of Tuesday, January 25th, 2022.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
All right, and seconded. Is there further discussion on the minutes? I know that I'll give, wait a minute to review. You've seen them. Did you have anything
I
else?
knew the part that was corrected, yeah,
Okay,
so I'm good.
so everybody's good, no further discussion. You okay, Jigs?
I'm okay.
All right, so since we have someone on the phone, we have to do this through roll. So everyone has to say their name and say aye or nay. So all those in favor, start with Jeff.
Jeff Dunbar, aye.
Stephen Gold, aye. Wade Michelle, aye.
Jigs?
Jim McAuliffe, aye.
Deborah Wright, aye. All right, we pass the minutes. Thank you. Any additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters and or pressing matters that will require ratification at a future meeting?
No.
Okay.
No additions.
All right.
Just a handout from the manager, so.
Thank you. All right, then public comment on items. Anyone out there? I don't see any public in here. Does anyone out there have anything they would like to say during this portion? I see no hands. Just give me, making sure we're good. All right, it looks like there's no one out there who has public comment. So we move on then. I'm afraid to make you race around like this,
That's all
Scott. Back to the manager's report is our next item.
Thank you. So handed out copies of some updates since we last spoke about the Bellows Bridge, and I know there's been some media coverage of this, but I wanted to just give the board what we have currently. So in front of you, I've given you the front page of the current 2023 to 2032 Transportation Improvement Plan for the state of New Hampshire. So this is their current document. If you look at the page that then lists the Walpole, Rockingham, Vermont, that's the Bellows Bridge project. And you can see that this has been updated. You can see the new numbers. So the total project cost is now the $17,708,000. And you can also see now that they have some additional funding where they have added the monies from the federal government, I think from the new infrastructure bill. So now the unfunded portion is roughly 490. Well, it's a little like 460,000 would be roughly the Vermont share. That would be part of the engineering as well as part of the construction. So the last piece of paper that I gave you was, the acronyms are what they are, if you guys are interested.
Yeah.
Make yourself crazy with the acronyms. But this is the actual current STIP for the state of Vermont. And you can see that in that STIP, there is a $480,000 add item. So we are working with the municipal planning folks and making sure that everything in our STIP matches up with what's currently in the New Hampshire STIP. This is up for adoption. My understanding is it should go through since it's basically funded with federal money. There's no reason for the state of New Hampshire not to fund it. And then we would actually then start with engineering in 2023.
Next year. Yay.
So this is, as close as we've come with a lot of people that have spent a lot of time and energy, keeping this issue alive, making sure that our federal officials and other officials were working towards some resolution. And it appears right now that we might be close to the finish line here and actually at a point where this will go forward as a fully funded project.
Yeah.
With both Vermont and New Hampshire fully funding this starting in 2023. So it's not good news yet because like any federal program, things aren't official until we get official notification. But as of right now, this is as close as we're going to come, and we feel pretty confident that this will get approved and be fully funded going forward.
Do we have any idea when they intend to approve this 10-year plan?
It's been pending. It was submitted, went through all their public reviews. It got submitted for their legislative approval beginning of February. And my understanding is that the legislature in New Hampshire is going to approve it as submitted. It will go to the governor for signature and it should be ready to go. So end of the month, beginning of March.
Wow.
It's not that far away.
Wow.
And, like I said, a lot of people spend a lot of time keeping this issue alive and working through the federal folks and our planning delegations and other people. And right now, it might be one of these cases where, good things happen for those who waited. So I know 2009 is a long time for those that really have been back to the beginning, but
Yeah.
you can see hopefully 2023 sees the beginning of a rehab project that'll really benefit the village and our whole community. So kind of exciting stuff.
That's good. Okay, anything further for?
No, so we'll keep everybody posted as that goes forward. But I just want to give you guys the most recent updates because I know there had been some discussion about where we stood. So I want to make sure the board had a full understanding. Everything else I think we're going to deal with later on in the meeting, so.
Okay. All right then, first item on the agenda is the update on the rental housing ordinance. You've all had a chance to look at the depth of language on S79.
So basically, there's two bills, right? This is the Senate version. The House also has a version. This particular portion I wanted to copy for you because this really lists more of the text of what's actually happening. The argument back and forth between the two legislative bodies at this point in time are really just about how they're going to fund the additional inspectors that have been proposed. I think there was two different funding mechanisms, but the body of the legislation basically stays the same. So all of these items that you see in the handout are basically how it's been proposed, and I don't believe it'll get changed between now and whenever they decide to adopt and send it to the governor for his recommendation. The biggest issues obviously for us are, what are the charges? You can see that there's a proposal in here to charge a fee for registration. And again, I don't know if there'll be any additional, there was some discussion of penalties and some other items that have been crossed through. So at this point, I think it's just simply going to be a registration and inspection program, and hopefully our law can either be folded into this process or can at least be inclusive of this process so that we can get our portion moving based on our current local law as
All
well.
right, just wondering if we're in line with what they're proposing, so that, because they're going to give us authority to do this work
Correct.
if we follow all of the guidelines that they already have.
And I think the problem has been, we've asked we've had meetings and gone up and talked to folks in Springfield, and they've been slow walking our particular agreement because they wanted to get all of this language and get some legislative direction from Montpelier So then they could go and start to have agreements with communities that want to go forward and do, work on this process in conjunction with these updates. So there's nothing, at least from I can read of this, that's in any kind of direct conflict or any kind of major consideration that might be a problem. But again, I think it's worth reading through. It's a pretty long series of sections, but I think it's worth your time just to get a sense of what the state's looking at.
Do you know if there will be redundancy of inspections?
No.
And I guess from this, I guess my question is more, if we as a community take on through our own inspection process doing it, I assume that the state will send less resources our way from the inspection standpoint.
Well, we've been working with them, trying to get more of the state folks down here on a coordinated basis. And so they've been coming down every roughly week to 2 weeks with meeting with Chuck and with Sean, trying to go to different properties that presented problems. And that's been a fairly recent sort of arrangement. As we go forward with this, my guess is they won't have anywhere near the manpower to do anything to
So,
overlap. So we would have to probably do this in conjunction with whatever,
So-
minimal resources they're gonna have.
so if we're paying our people to do the inspections, will there be resources available financially to?
Well, that's one of the things we hope to get in our agreement with them as we go forward, because I would think there should be something if we're taking on that burden. Certainly more than just a $35 registration fee, but
Yeah, I haven't seen anything specific in the language that so far
no.
that gives us any resources. That had been a problem the
Well, I
last
just-
couple of years when they started this process.
I guess I'm just, why would we pay our people if the state's gonna do it and we're gonna be paying for it anyway?
I would be concerned, and I think that, again, they're only proposing with 5 additional inspectors for the entire state based on the proposal.
Yeah.
So you guys can do the math.
Yeah.
How long would it take 5 people
To
additionally
get to every,
to get to all the potential rental housing in a registered database?
oh yeah,
It would be decades. That would be my guess.
we're already proposing this, every 2 years and certain starting with certain sections of the town.
Right.
As opposed to, the village,
Yes, we try to do it in a 4-year
Four-year cycle.
4-year cycle, yeah, 4-year
Right.
cycle. So that if it's gonna take us that long, how long would it take state operators to do that?
I think you could wait.
Decades.
It'd be like a Vilas Bridge situation. I think you'd spend a significant amount of time.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Anything further, Stefan, Wade?
no. So this is it's been read through, I guess, the government ops and through all the various subcommittees. It's been reported back. At this point, I think it needs to just go in front of, there might have to be some sort of coordination between the Senate version and the House version to get a final version, and that's really about the funding. And then it'll go, I would assume, it seems to have enough support to be passed. But then it would go to the governor, and we'll see where we go from there. So,
On our own end, locally, do we have, I don't remember, did we schedule a date for a first public hearing?
well, we originally had talked about bringing it back for your next meeting in
right.
February. The question is, do you want to wait and see what the state does? Do you want to have a public hearing? It's still a little premature until they have a,
Yeah, but what kind of track are they on? I mean, is this on a fast track? They slow walking it? I mean, if locally that's happening in a regional sense,
right.
what's the state doing? with it?
They've been pretty active on this since they reconvened back in January. They've been working on this pretty consistently. So my guess is it should go to the governor within the next 4 to 6 weeks.
So would we be okay with putting this to the first or second meeting in March? At this point, talking about it again.
I mean, budgetary wise, it's one of the things Sean and I are discussing because we don't know what it's gonna do.
Yeah.
So we're sort of holding off to see, is the state gonna make any effort before we can make some, at least have a conversation with the board about what it would do.
So let's tentatively put it the first meeting in March,
Okay.
see if there's been any movement. Is that
See
okay,
where it
guys?
stands in the beginning of March.
Any comments, Jakes, at this point?
No, I like ours, the one that that you guys had drafted,
Uh-huh.
but, I guess prudence would say that, just, try to move it forward and see what happens at the state.
Yeah, well, remember, Sean has to get a memorandum of agreement or understanding from the regional state fire marshal, is that it? In order, in Springfield, for us to move forward anyway, and he doesn't have that, so.
I see, okay.
So we're kind of like, slowly walking this to the end goal, wherever it is, and once he's got, and we can pick up speed once Sean gets that agreement.
They're kind
Okay.
of,
That makes sense. Okay, so that's what we'll do with
So
that.
I'll calendar it for that first meeting in March and we'll keep track and see where it goes.
Yep. Great.
Okay.
Second item is the request from the Alumni Association for the fee waiver for the Alumni Parade and events on June 19th, 2022.
So maybe this is the beginning of the end of our 2-year COVID world. I'm not quite sure, but unfortunately, the event's been canceled the last 2 years because of COVID. And I think they were very hopeful last year and they could have an event. And just the last minute, it's just not feasible. So this year, talking with the folks in the Alumni Association, they feel like they're definitely going to be all systems go. So there is some request here for some of their events based on the parade and use of some of our facilities. So they've specifically asked if they could be receive some waivers for some of the activity that they're requesting, mostly the parade permit, which is probably the biggest one, which would be on the 19th.
Right, and there's the town items are in here, the Waypoint Center, and the theater.
It's been in front of the town. They've already agreed to the waivers.
Yeah.
It's just a question of following through on the next, on your round.
And we do, the police department does charge them for the dance. I think that's correct, but I don't know how that process works.
I believe they do. I think
Okay.
it's for an officer for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
At our
Well, they're down at the Waypoint Center, yeah.
Right.
So I would need a motion to, if we wish to waive the, I believe it's the alcohol permit.
Okay, I'll make the motion, but should I do a full sweep of all 4 of these requests? Well, that'd be the,
Well, some of them are town, right? So we're not gonna do.
Right,
all.
some of them are town, but if you want to just name them all, it's fine, because the overlap,
Yeah, he'll list
Okay.
them, yeah.
right.
I'll make the motion that the Bellows Falls Board of Trustees in reference to requests from the Bellows Falls Alumni Association waive the fees for the use of the Waypoint Center. Waive the fee for the, give me just a second.
I think the hang the banner, I believe, and the
Yep.
open air events, I think was the other one.
dated January 25th, one.
Right.
All right. Waive the open bottle ordinance for the dance at the Waypoint Center, as well as the noise ordinance for the dance at the Waypoint Center. Parade and open air event permit for both Waypoint and Parade. And the banner fee, waiver of the banner fee.
A second.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this item? On all these, on the waivers? Okay. All right, hearing none, see anybody out there, let me make sure if anybody has their notes or something. Then we have to roll call it, so all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Jeff Dunbar, aye.
Stephen Golick, aye.
Deborah Wright, aye,
Wade Mashar, aye.
and Jake,
Jim McCall, aye.
all right. They have their waivers.
Thank you all.
You're
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, third item is the discussion of the Bellows Falls Garage project on village services. There was an item I brought up because it will have an impact on us when they're putting in 46 apartments. We will have user fees, of course. Is it 46 or 47? Is it 26? 27.
Something, yeah.
27. And I just wanted to, want us to consider, give serious consideration to the fact that we will probably need, to consider our officers for fire and police. And whether or not we're going to be okay with that and consider that when we think about budgeting for the following year. We know we have a reduction in policing, so we will, as I know Scott is working diligently to try and fill our numbers, and we know we're not at full staff. So that was it. I just wanted us to think about that, as that will be completed, it's supposed to be done in the spring or fall of this year,
I think it's gonna be a little later than that, maybe.
okay?
Yeah. I think the question is, right now, Windsor Housing Trust has roughly, we're looking at the the Howard block, the Exeter block, 3 properties on the William Street extension, or 4 properties, excuse me, on William Street extension, 1 on South Street and 2 on Pine Street. That's their current inventory.
Okay,
Just trying to track down to see if there's any, really it's fire, EMS, and police, to see what the potential runs are for those particular properties.
Mhm.
And it's a different mix on different places, so it's hard to give a direct, one-to-one comparison.
right, yeah.
But you can at least see call information.
So what are we're looking, or we're talking about potential of user fees then?
No,
I think
I was talking
Deb
about
was
sewer
just-
and water will be paid for as user
Correct.
fees,
Right.
that's fine.
Yeah.
But the services, impact on our services of fire and police and school, that's one of the things somebody brought up, but that's not under our control. But those are things to consider ourselves with another 27 apartments
Right.
in the village, which will take us over 1,000 in the village.
Okay, so in terms of user fees, would we be looking at other places in the village too that would?
No, I wasn't meaning user fees in that, I'm sorry, I
Utility
confused you. All I meant was to consider what we need for budgeting and how that's going to impact us when we have that many more apartments in the village with at least, so I'm sorry, the reason why I got 46 or 47 was the number of people. When you figure there's probably 2 to most of the apartments as opposed to a single occupancy. So that will have an additional impact on us and our services. Looking at the Riverview, that I live next to, and the number of times the police and fire are at that building, and I'm not sure how many apartments are there. It will have an increase in servicing, even if it's just burning toast, that sort of thing. So it is to consider how much more money we'll spend in officers to cover all the things we'll have to do. That's it's just a thought.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
not something we're necessarily
yeah.
gonna do anything about. We have to do officers, and that's something that Scott has to consider.
So what type of investment are they making over there at the Bellows Falls Garage Building? What are we up to now? 'Cause I remember it started off around 5 million, now we're,
Well, I think their total construction cost is 10 million,
Yeah.
but then
9.9.
the property taxes are based on the discounted rents and some other issues because they're
Right.
subsidized, so it's not a direct relationship to the $10 million investment.
well, right,
But it is overall, it will be a contributing
yeah.
asset to our tax base. I think that the issue that Deb's concerned with is, are we overburdening, trying to at least break out some numbers so that the board has a better comfort with what's the impact on fire, EMS, and police, and
So I looked at some of the numbers and, pulling the tax bills from the building when it was privately owned. In 2019 and 20 and 20 and 21, the taxes paid were $2,824 and $2,811 respectively. And then the utilities, which of course are paid every 6 months, were $250 and $344. So when the Bellows Falls Garage project is complete, the project's going to contribute revenue of 28. They're projecting based upon current tax rates, $28,000 to $30,000 per year, not including the utility fees
In taxes.
in taxes
just.
Where did you get those numbers from?
from their
Their projections.
their projections and what, they have to do all of those calculations for the approvals. And I think they presented it starting in 2019 using the numbers then. And of course, our rates are,
Oh, increase in that.
yeah.
And what's the village's portion of that?
Well,
That would be town and village, right?
town and village.
Yeah.
So village is, our town rate is 0.99. Village is 0.54, 0.6 right now.
It'd be roughly half.
So-
Better than half.
Roughly half.
Half that.
So, but if you extend that over a 10-year period, you know, it would have contributed $34,000 in 10 years, and we're gonna be looking at probably close to 400,000 in revenue from that building, half of which will be to the village. I think of that bill, according to Wyndham Windsor Housing, $12,500 will be education per year. So they are paying for some of that. Then I think we have to look at, you know, all the other statistics too. 22 of the 27 residential units are going to be one bedrooms or efficiencies. So the impact on the school system is likely to be very small. And then if you look at the other multifamilies in town that are mixed income, they're all utilizing town and village resources, just like you and me. The Howard Block, the Exeter Block, 7-9 Pine Street, 62 to 70 William Street. You know, I don't believe that those are using resources disproportionately. And I spoke to both, I'm in a butter to Wyndham and Windsor Housing redevelopment on William Street. Stewart Properties manages all of those Wyndham and Windsor housing projects. And I can say as an abutter that without an ounce of reservation that those buildings have positively changed that neighborhood. They're beautiful buildings, they're well maintained, the people are respectful. I spoke with Chuck, the town and village health officer, also spoke with the local management team of Stewart Property Management. Out of 51 units, they believe that there was one call to the fire department last year for burn toast, and that there was one call to the police department for a domestic dispute. So 2 calls out of 51 units. Yeah. So I guess my concern about this is that, you know, what are we using for a measurement? Are we looking at, you know, is it per person, the calls, per square foot of living space, per unit, per structure, per assessed value? You're talking about 1,000 apartment units, but how are we measuring this?
It's been an ongoing conversation for the last at least 10 years or more. Since we got over 900, I think it was like 5 or 6, maybe 7 years ago, we were already over 900 apartments in the village at that time, and the concerns over the larger sizes, the larger apartment buildings, and some of the impacts. There were years where we had quite a few calls from places like that, like I said, like the one I live next to. Although I have no actual problems with them specifically, except maybe some of their service providers keep parking in the driveway.
The seniors aren't getting around it, right?
But I guess that's why I asked, what's the measurement? Because
Well,
you put 100 people in a building on one lot,
Yeah.
and then you've got a block
Yeah.
that has 100 people, you can have the same number of calls, it's density.
And
So-
I'm only putting that in particular, not fire necessarily as much as police. We have reduced police force who did that, if you did that on purpose a few years ago. And now, because of the inability to retain enough officers or attract enough officers, we have some shortness of staff. We have probably more part-time officers than we have full-time officers right now. And I don't think we still have what we consider to be capacity for what we have budgeted, and we're going to be adding that many more. So it's a weight that we need to consider. That's all I was saying. Wasn't saying we had to do anything with them specifically, but their own numbers said there would be some 40 odd people in the building if it was fulfilled capacity. So it's just a consideration.
You know, overall, I think you have to look at a large scope of things. You mentioned as far as the efficiency units, 1 bedroom type stuff. Not because you're on the school board, but yeah, because you're on the school board. Maybe it's time to maybe close the school down or something.
Oh, geez.
And I won't mention what I had in mind, but when you talk enrollments have really severely dropped.
I'm on the
Also,
school board.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jigs and I are both on school boards, yeah.
the other item is over the history, with the changes in the fire department and responses to medical calls, etc. I think also you have to, or somebody has to educate people. I've got the radios in my rig. I'm on a fire department, but you hear these individuals that will call in because Jimmy fell off the bike and scraped his knee, so they call the ambulance. Or Uncle Joe slipped last night and now his ankle's bothering him. What they really ought to be doing instead of calling the ambulance, in my opinion, is utilizing the urgent care or their family practitioner, because they don't result in ambulance rides. You know, it's a Band-Aid run. And it's people abusing the system, in my opinion, because it's convenient. It's just as convenient to go to urgent care.
When are you starting that education program? Okay, so that was it. I just wanted us to consider it as the project starts as moving forward. I mean, right now, we're just watching it crumble until they start, get that cleaned up and then start rebuilding.
So is there any new, because I haven't
Yeah.
really followed other than what I've read briefly in the paper and when I watched the other meeting, a mock-up of what this will look like now? How much has that changed exterior wise?
I think that's already out there.
It's, yeah,
Yeah,
I've already got the model and.
Yeah.
Schematic.
so the information's available through them, and I think, do we even have it on our own website?
We have copies.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll
So,
check that out.
so it is available, yeah. So again, just thinking as we're moving into budget season, whether or not we fund properly based upon the, the addition of additional people and the addition of people into our community as the building's completed. That was it. Did you have anything, Jigs, to add?
No, I'm good.
That's all. It was just a discussion.
Yeah, I'd be curious that when the paper mills are all running, what the,
What it was like then?
what it was like then, yeah.
Jeez, yeah. Building codes were not up to stuff then either. That moves us on to the last item on our agenda, which is the financials.
So a couple things, and I'd spoken with Deb and Jigs earlier. You'll notice that one of the items in the, there's a $47,000 item for 66 Atkinson, which got charged to the village on unsafe buildings, and it should have been charged to the town, so that will be corrected for your next group of financials. That was pointed out by both Deb and Jake, so it's a coding problem. It's on page 5. You look under unsafe buildings, you'll see $47,453.07. That's part of the payment that went to the demolition contractor, which is coded correctly.
Yeah.
So that will go and be correctly coded. We're still working with the auditors and Cynthia and Alyssa for the water fund, the debt service question.
Mhm.
From our previous discussions. I was hoping to have a conference call this week. It wasn't able to get scheduled, so I'm hoping to do it next week so that I could try to get it done in order to have that updated for your next round of financials. That came up as a question in previous conversations. That still has not been resolved. I need to get the auditors on the phone for part of that. And then the other item that you might have noticed is in the sewer fund, we did put in the purchase price for the new dryer. And then the question will be, as we go forward, if we're going to offset that with the potential 5-year bond that we discussed, we have to put that on for public approval at our town meeting or our village meeting later on in May. Or we can talk about other options as we go through the budget process, but that will show up in these current sets of financials.
Okay. What page is what page on the sewer is the Shinchi dryer showing up on?
I was trying to look that up while we were talking, so give me a second.
Okay.
It'll take me a second to find it.
It's right near the end.
It was near the end, too.
12 or 14?
So it's under- The lighting in here isn't very good, so.
It's
No.
actually under
Page
page
12.
13.
13.
If you look under equipment purchase, and it's 268.
Yep, there it is.
So page 13 and 14. So it's basically the wastewater fund.
Okay. Is that it, Scott? this
Yes, those were the highlights so far. I didn't know if anybody else had any other
one? I was gonna
questions.
see if Jake's had anything from afar.
No, that's it. Those were my concerns.
Good
So
items, yeah. Okay. And mine too. So anyone else?
We're good.
I do have Still have some concerns about some OT, we're over the OT lines and others in the policing and general fund issues, but, you know, simply stuff to keep an eye on.
We'd expect that, but
Yeah, I know.
Deb,
Yes,
the one thing I mentioned to Scott was, I'd like to have them at a future meeting, you know, not necessarily the next meeting, but have a projection for year end for the sewer department, because
oh, sure.
most of our expenses there are running high. Of course, offsetting it is the
Excuse me.
revenue from the septic.
Mhm. Right,
But I think I just, you know, we're not gonna, the budget's not gonna look exactly right because of those things, but
Mhm.
I think we just hope that we're gonna end up close to what we were projecting, which was, I think, a break even or a slightly positive
slightly positive number, yeah.
sewer.
Would you be accepting of, just a write-up instead of taking the sewer department's time? If you got a write-up of those numbers, that's what you're looking for anyway,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll sit down with
I don't-
Rob and
I
go
don't-
through some
I don't
things
think,
and try to
you
just
know, we don't
highlight
have
some of the.
Rob at
some
the
of the
meeting or
variances.
anything like
Right,
that.
okay,
which
so
is-
yeah, a write-up, okay,
It's really something between Scott and Alyssa and Rob.
yeah, that's what Scott said, okay, that's great. So that would be what, say for what, the next meeting? Or before, as we
No, I
start
see.
budgets?
We start budgeting
Yeah, a
next meeting,
couple.
but we'll definitely get it before we do the water and sewer.
Okay.
Which I think is the meeting after, so I'll make sure.
So
we get it.
it'll be the last meeting or the first meeting in March,
It'll be in
okay?
March, right, early
All right.
March.
Okay, moving on, we will be having an executive session. There should be no action taken, but there will be attorney-client privilege. Reviewing agenda items for the next meeting, which is February 22nd. I think we've got some of them here. Do you have anything else at this point?
No,
Besides what we
nothing,
talked about?
nothing.
And of course, you guys just let Scott or I know if there's things you want added on to the 22nd. Is everybody okay getting their packets for the PD or the public safety building? It's number 12.
I had trouble getting my packet.
Yeah, you sure did.
we don't want to hear about it.
I picked up your packet, by the way, and I gave it to Scott.
Thank you.
I haven't had any problems getting mine there.
Yeah, as long as I just get my rear end over there.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, don't take the bridge, go across and do errands, just come back and go to the police. The fire, actually, it's closer to the fire department door, but it's good, except that sometimes they're soggy. Review agenda items for joint board meeting, which is March of 2022. We got a little time for that. That's the 5th Tuesday.
It's the end of the month, I think it's the 30th.
End of March, yeah.
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 Yep.
So I was thinking, the annual meeting, the town annual meeting is February 28th with voting on March 1st.
Right.
Right, and so that's a Tuesday, so that means there will not be a select board meeting that evening,
But when
although
they do the
technically it
first
used to be,
Wednesday,
it'll be
right.
Wednesday instead
Right.
until if they keep it or decide to
Right.
change it back to Tuesdays. So there won't be anyone running down, like the police usually run down with the tape and tell everybody who got in.
Now get out. whatever
Now
they
get
say.
out. Yeah, so that was it. So a little off kilter from other
Yeah,
year.
the drama, we'll save the drama.
Save the drama for Wednesday instead. Yeah, it'll be surprise, new board. Let me see, review and approve orders, bills and warrants.
Motion to approve
All right.
orders, bills, and warrants is circulated here tonight.
In a second,
I'll second that.
Jakes, I know you haven't seen the orders, bills and warrants, except for what you see online, so, yeah. All right, so all those in favor, please signify by saying aye, and we'll do a roll call.
Jeff Dunbar, aye.
Stephen Golick, aye.
Deborah Wright, aye,
Wade Mashar, aye.
and
Jim McAuliffe, aye.
thank you. And of course, that includes the amendment that Scott's already told us about, so.
Yes.
Other business, Scott,
No, nothing more.
wait,
I don't think so. I don't think I have anything.
no, okay. I don't either, except it's gonna be warm for a few days, it means it's gonna be a mud puddle everywhere, so.
Right.
I'm good.
And Jeff.
All set.
All right, then we need a motion to go into executive session.
You need one or two motions?
I think we need two.
It's
so
two on that, number 12 is what we need.
So I
Yeah.
think the first one is number 5, the discussion of
Okay.
major documents that are exempt.
So you want
And then-
5 and
then
12.
the reason would be the confidential attorney.
Oh, okay, all right, so we need two of those.
Okay, I'll make the motion that the Board of Trustees enter into an executive session to discuss or consideration of records or documents that are exempt from public records laws. Per 1 VSA 313A6, and to invite into that executive session the municipal manager, Scott Pickup.
And you're reading something from the attorney, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't need to invite him, he's not there.
Oh,
Nope.
we're not inviting him?
No, him, yes, no, Ray.
You gotta
Yeah.
invite me, but not the
Right.
attorney.
Not the attorney.
We're just-
My-
I didn't invite him.
I thought we had to.
So I need a second for the motion.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye by roll.
Jeff Dunbar, aye.
Stephen Golick, aye.
Deborah Wright, aye.
Wade Mashar, aye.
And Jigs?
Jim qualified.
Okay, and then I guess the second motion, so if you flip it over
Yep.
to number 12, we just have to. do
But
that one.
that motion, the second motion of 12, actually needs a third motion, because there's two motions for 12.
Okay,
So I'll have to do both of those.
got it. Very good.
A little complicated, but
Okay, so I'll move to enter into an executive session to discuss confidential attorney-client communications made for the purpose of providing professional legal services to the body where premature general public knowledge may clearly place the municipality at a substantial disadvantage.
and we got a second by Jeff. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Jeff Dunbar, aye.
Stephen Golick, aye.
Deborah Wright, aye.
Wade Mashar, aye.
And Jigs?
Jim qualified.
Okay, we have that one, and then the last motion, please.
Okay, I move that the board enter into an executive session to discuss attorney client communications under provision of Title I, Section 313A1 of the Vermont State Statutes.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Jeff Dunbar, aye.
Stephen Golick, aye.
Deborah Wright, aye.
Wade Mashar, aye.
Jim qualified.
Okay, thank you, folks. We will be going to executive session. No action should be taken. Kathleen, I'll get those numbers to you.